All right, so final exam review, day 1. So we got 5 days. We're going to get the first one out of the way. Graph the function f of x equals to 3 over x minus 2 plus 1. Now, just as a reminder, the equation is supposed to look like this. And your HK, I think I used to call it like the crosshair, the center, right? So HK is the origin. Sometimes we call it the crosshair. And the reason why we would call it the crosshair is because you're going to draw a vertical and horizontal line right through that dot. Okay? And then once you do that, you're basically just going to have to base your graph on A. If A is positive, then the graph is going to look like this. Okay? If A is negative, then your graph will look like this. So it just depends on what A is. So you can see in my case, my A term is 3. So my graph is going to look like quadrants 1 and 3 are occupied. Okay? Not quadrants 2 and 4. So 1 and 3 are going to be occupied. All right? So let me go ahead and do this problem. What is my HK according to this problem here? Remember, H is always the opposite. 2, 1, right? So my HK is 2, 1. So I'm going to go to 2, 1. I'm going to put a tiny little dot right there. And then I'm going to make dashed lines like this and like this. And this is my new kind of like origin, my new center. So now I just got to draw my lines like where it says A is positive, right? Top right, bottom left. I'm just going to draw my lines like that, and then I'm done. So here we go. And that's it. And this is all you have to do for these problems. So it's not hard. Just remember what the A term does to the graph, and then from there, find your origin, kind of draw your new center, and draw your picture. Okay? So that's question number 1. By the way, I told you, I think there's like 64 to 66 questions, something like that. Some of these will repeat. So there might be 2 of number 1. Okay? So it's not just because if I do it once, it doesn't mean that's it. Okay? There may be multiple of the same time. All right. Question number 2 says, if y varies inversely as x, and if x equals 12 and y equals 4, find y when x equals to 6. So inverse variation has this formula. Okay? That's inverse variation. Okay? So when you're given inverse variation problems, you're supposed to write it twice. Okay? You're going to write it twice. You're going to write xy equals k, xy equals to k. All right? The first sentence is going to give you information to figure out what k is. And then once you know what k is, you can plug it in and solve for the rest. So if we look at the first sentence right here, it says, if x equals 12 when y equals 4. So I'm going to put 12, 4 equals k, that's 48. So k is 48. So now I'm going to go to the second equation, the same equation, but the second one. I'm going to put 48 for k. And then notice what it says the second time. It says find y when x equals 6. So 6y. So if you divide both sides by 6, you get 8. And that's your answer. So you're going to get your formula for inverse variation. You're going to write it twice. The first formula, you're going to figure out the k value. The second formula, you're going to find the missing portion of it. Okay? So that's what you're doing for inverse variation. Now, there's also going to be direct variation. So as you can see, that's number 3. Okay, so direct variation, the formula looks like this. Y over X equals to K. That's direct variation. So again, if you don't remember these formulas, make sure you kind of circle them, put a star on it, or if you have a highlighter, like highlight it. That way when you're making your cheat sheet for the final, you're like, oh, this was an important formula. I didn't remember it. It's a direct variation formula. Let me write it down. But same thing as I did in question number 2. I'm going to write the equation 2 times. Okay? So y over x equals k. Y over x equals k. I'm going to take the first sentence, or at least the first half of the sentence, and try to find out what k is. So it says x is 10 when y is 5. So y is 5, x is 10. That means k is equal to half. Okay? So now that I know what k is, I'm going to plug it into the other side. 1/2 is equal to. It says find y when x is 20. So y when x is 20. I'm just going to multiply 20 to the other side. Okay, I'm going to multiply it over. So y is equal to, what's 20 times half? Or what's half of 20? That's 10. And we're done. These are fairly easy problems, but if you don't know the formula, I mean, good luck, right? You got to know the formula you're going to be using. All right, so question number 4, we're going to go back into solving radicals. If you guys remember, whenever you solve radicals, you're going to square them, right? You're going to get a square root and square it to remove the radical. So that's what I'm going to do for question number 4. I'm just going to square both sides to start. So squaring this side and squaring this side. So I end up with x over 2 equals to 30 minus x. Now at this point, I got to get rid of the division by 2. So the opposite of division by 2 is multiplication by 2. I'm going to multiply this 2 over to the other side. So that becomes x equals 2 times 30 minus x. Let me go ahead and distribute that. X is equal to 60 minus 2x. And now all I have to do is get my variables put together and then divide, and I'm done. So let me move my negative 2x over to this side. So that becomes a positive 3x equals to 60. And if I divide both sides by 3, what do I get? 20. And that's my answer. Okay? So it's not that this problem is insanely difficult. It's just square both sides to get rid of the square roots. Get rid of our denominator by multiplying it to the other side. Distribute, solve, and you're good. Okay? Again, there could be one problem like this. There could be 2. There could be 3. I don't remember, but I know there's one because I'm practicing one of them. So I'm not going to make you guys practice stuff that's not going to show up. Okay? Here's another one. Solve by taking square roots. Okay, solve by taking square roots. Now, it doesn't mean to take a square root immediately. That just means eventually you will. Okay? So what I'm going to do is try to get it to the point where I can take a square root to solve this. So first off, let me move this 4. Okay? So I'm going to move this 4. I got 2x squared equals to 20. And then I'm going to divide both sides by 2. So if I divide this by 2, I get x squared is equal to 10. Okay? So again, first I move the 4 over. Okay? And I got a 20. And then I divided by 2. So 20 divided by 2 is 10. Now I have x squared. To make x squared into x, I can take a square root of both sides. So I'm going to go ahead and take a square root of both sides. So that gives me x is equal to plus or minus square root of 10. Now, I'm not sure about the final exam. I can't recall. It's been over 4 months since I made it. But I don't remember if, like, in the answer, there might be like a square root of 20 and you have to still simplify that. But if you have a square root of 20 as your answer, just put it into your calculator and it should give you 2 square root of 5. It'll fix it for you. So you don't have to worry about like doing it by hand. So if it can be simplified, your calculator can simplify it for you. Okay? Now, if you don't have one of my calculators, I really recommend you get one of the ones that I let you guys borrow. So I know, like, Quincy, you use a TI. I don't think that one, does it simplify all the way? Try like the square root of 20. See if it gives you a decimal or 2 radical 5. But if it doesn't give you a 2 radical 5, then make sure you're using one of mine. Because or else you're going to get decimal answers, and that may not be the multiple choice options. So, all right, are we good with question 5? We're almost halfway done. Okay, so yours does simplify as well. Okay. But yeah, if you have your own calculator and it's giving you like decimal answers, use one of the ones I have. All right, this one says solve by factoring. In order to solve, remember, anytime you're going to solve, you need to set it equal to 0. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to move this over. So I get 2x squared plus x minus 1 equals 0. But they said I have to do this by factoring. That means I got to use the x method here because this is a trinomial. So I know that a is equal to 2, b is equal to 1, c is negative 1. Okay? So I do know that is the case right there. Okay? So I'm going to do my x method here. And 8 times c is negative 2, b is 1. Okay? And then once I do that, I got to think of 2 numbers that multiply to negative 2 that add up to a positive 1. So it's going to be a negative 1 and a positive 2. Right? Because negative 1 times 2 is negative 2. Negative 1 plus 2 is a positive 1. So these are my 2 answers. But remember, my a term is a 2. So I don't just stop there and keep going. I need to divide, right? So I got to divide everything by a. So this comes out to a positive 1. And this just stays a negative half. So let me write down my solutions, or my factors, shall I say. X minus half, x plus 1 equals to 0. Okay? Now I know that you're supposed to fix the fraction. But usually you just fix it if I told you just factor. Not solve, just factor. And if it was just factor, I'd want you to write 2x minus 1 times x plus 1. Because you're not supposed to have fractions in your factors as solutions. But since I'm solving, I don't need to simplify it. I can just do this. X minus half equals 0. X plus 1 equals 0. So x is a positive half. X is a negative 1. Those are my 2 answers. And again, the instructions are telling you guys what to do. Notice that, like, for question 6, it says solve by factoring. For question 5, it said solve by taking a square root, right? So sometimes they're pretty obvious about what they want you to do. So pay attention to the instructions. Don't just look at the problem and start doing whatever the first thing is that pops in your head, right? Sometimes the instructions are pretty obvious what you need to do. Sometimes they're not. The question number 4 just said solve, right? But hopefully you notice there's square roots on both sides. I better get rid of them, right? Question number 7 just says solve. It doesn't say anything about what you have to do, okay? It just says solve. Well, let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to divide both sides by 10 to try to get x by itself. This gives me x squared is equal to 9. What did I do last time there was an x squared on one side? I took a square root. So let's take square roots here. That means that x is equal to plus or minus the square root of 9 is 3. Remember, every time you take a square root, your answers are positive or negative, both. Okay, so plus or minus 3. Okay, why is it plus or minus? I don't know if a teacher ever told you, but the reason is because if you get a positive 3 and square it, you get 9. If you get negative 3 and square it, you also get 9. Okay, so the answers for a square root are always both positive and negative, as long as you square the same number. Okay, so there we go. Remember, we're going to 11. So 8, 9, 10, 11, got 4 more to go. Notice there's a lot of factoring in this one. Okay, so factor 4x squared plus 10x plus 6. Now, this is a trinomial. Okay, before I get into it, though, I do notice 4, 10, and 6. They have something in common, right? They have a 2 in common. So it's going to be to my benefit to notice that they have a common factor. I'm going to take it out. So this is what it's going to look like at this point. Now, if you guys remember when I did this, when I taught it to you guys, I always highlighted this number. I said, don't forget about it, right? It's going to be part of our answer. But we're only going to focus, I will tell you, on this part right here, right? We're just focusing on that. We're going to do the X method on that. So A is 2, B is 5, C is 3. So it's 6 and 5, right? Because 2 times 3 is 6. 5 goes on the bottom. Two numbers that multiply to 6 that add up to 3 would be a 2 and a 3, right? So a positive 2 and a positive 3. That multiplies to 6. They add up to 5. But I can't just use those because my A term here, right? This A term right here is not a 1. It's a 2. So I got to divide by 2. This gives me a positive 1. And this one is positive 3/2. So my factors are, when I factor this out, so my factors are going to be a 2 from up here, right? Dropping that 2 down. And then it's going to be x plus 1, x plus 3/2, or as you said, 2x plus 3. If you kind of want to just go straight to the solution, 2 times x plus 1, 2x plus 3. Now notice, when it told me to solve, I didn't do that, right? I didn't fix the fraction. I just solved with the fraction intact. The reason is because the fraction can exist as long as you're not just factoring. If that's going to be your final answer, the factored form, then you got to make sure that that fraction is fixed. But if you're just going to solve, you don't have to fix the fraction. So that's what I did before. Here, it just said factor, so I had to make sure it looked nice. No fractions inside. Okay? Question 9. Now this is a difference of two squares. You should be able to notice it right away because it's only two terms. It's a difference, and both terms can be written as something squared, right? Now, just to remind you about that formula, something squared minus something squared. Okay, so a squared minus b squared would be a minus b, a plus b. Just automatically you write that. Okay? So I just got to rewrite x squared minus 16 as something squared minus something squared. Okay? Well, what squared is 16? 4. What squared is x squared? Just x. So my answer is going to be x minus 4, x plus 4. And that's it. We're done. Okay, so x minus 4, x plus 4. So that's pretty easy. You just got to remember, oh, difference of two squares. It's two terms. That's your first hint. Subtraction is your second hint. And then after that, you got to ask yourself, can I rewrite it? Now, the question might be, well, what if I couldn't rewrite them as squares? Well, then you check to see if they have anything in common in general. Okay. And if they don't have anything in common, then you just kind of leave it alone. So here's an example of what I just mentioned. This looks like it could be a difference of two squares, right? But the problem is there's no way for me to get a 5 by squaring a normal number. I can square a square root of 5 and then I'll get the answer, but I can't just get a 5 by squaring a 2 or a 3 or something like that. So this is not a difference of two squares. So if it's not a difference of two squares, then I ask myself, what do they have in common? Well, I mentioned earlier they both have a 5, right? And they both also have a t. But just one t in common, not both t's. So this would be a t minus 1, and I'm done. I factored it. Now, if I couldn't have done that, then the answer is just 5t squared minus 5t. Like if there's nothing I could have pulled out that was in common, then the answer is itself. Okay? So we got one more problem. Like I said, I'm trying to break it down into equal parts so that we're not overdoing it, right? So 11 problems. I could go all 50 minutes and try to knock out about 25 problems a day, right? But I think after about 10, people are like, okay, hopefully we're almost done, right? Only so much math people want to see. So even I get tired of seeing it sometimes. So, and I'm the one that likes it a lot. So here we go. We're going to factor 4k squared plus 11k minus 3. It is a trinomial. I see 4, 11, and 3. So I ask myself, do they have anything in common? No. So since they don't have anything in common, I can't factor anything. So I'm just going to go ahead and go straight into the factoring of this problem. Now I know that A is 4, B is 11, and C is negative 3. By the way, you don't have to write those out. I just do it because I think sometimes people forget the process, right? Like I got to know what my A is, I got to know what my B is and my C is, so I can put it into this thing properly. So A times C, that's negative 12. B is 11. Two numbers that multiply to negative 12 that add up to a positive 11. It's going to be a positive 12 and a negative 1. Right? Because positive 12 times negative 1 is negative 12, and 12 minus 1 is 11. I have to divide by A, always divide by A, but if A is 1, it doesn't do anything. So that's why we tell you, like, don't worry about it. But we're going to divide by A, which is 4. So I end up with, if I divide by 4 on this first one, that's going to be a positive 3. And if I divide by 4 on this one, actually, that doesn't divide, so it's just negative 1/4. So my answer, if you're not kind of rushing through it, is going to look like this. It's going to be k plus 3, k minus 1/4. Now, if this was solving, if this was equal to 0, then I'd leave it like that and solve. But since it's just factoring, then this will be k plus 3, 4k minus 1. And those are, I think, our first 11 problems. Yep. First 11 problems for the day. We're going to do 11 tomorrow, 11 on not Monday, Tuesday. Remember, Monday's off. Okay? And so on and so forth till we're done. Okay?